Hi, my name's Jonathan Hicks. I'm back at the Dice Cup, and this evening I'm joined by Steve.
Dean.
A-Bomb. And we just finished playing Newton, which is a heavy Euro, and there's all kinds of different things going on here. There's a little bit of travelling around to different places in Europe here. These meeples kind of represent students, I think. You're sort of training them up or getting them to do work, and you're sort of developing technologies and things. But essentially, you're just trying to get as many points as you can. So I'll explain the mechanisms, it'll make a bit more sense. You've got a player board here, and it's all driven through card play. So you have a hand of cards here, and you play your cards to do a number of different actions. So if I lay them out here, the actions are kind of on the bottom of the card. So books let you kind of place your books onto here, but these require you to have certain things. So for example, if we just look at the travelling thing a second, there are various places you can travel to. So you've got different cities here, which are represented by these different circles with the numbers. You've got certain special ability squares as well you can travel to. Each time you move onto a space, you're getting the thing effectively. But you can dump a cube on here if you land on this spot. And notice, once you've achieved this objective, then you can kind of place a book on here using the book action. The compass travelling action is how you actually move around on the board. This is how you move the students, so they kind of start at the bottom and they're moving at the various tracks here. This one lets you acquire more cards. There's a kind of offer of cards, and you sort of pick the cards as you get them. And there's one which lets you work. This one here is effectively you doing some work, and you can move your guy along this track. But the key thing with all those different actions is that when you play one of them, you're getting it at a certain strength. So if I play my book action, you kind of play it to here, then I get it at strength 1, but if I've got any other books out, you can see I've got a book down here, then that makes it strength 2. So in terms of buying books, you can see on the left here, strength 1 would let me cover up something here if I've met the requirement, but strength 2 means I can cover up anything on the first or the second rows. Now, why do you want to cover these up? Well, effectively, for completing certain sections, you're getting points. So if I complete that row there, I'll be getting 5 points every round. So you can see I've completed various books here. So, for example, if I played this here, then I could, because I've got, say, 3 books, so I've got 2 blue books, but I'd need 3 to cover that one up. You have potions. You can actually spend a potion to ignore one of the books, and then I could take a book and cover it up. And now it means at the end of the round, because I filled up that row there, I'll be getting 6 points every round from then on, which is great. You get certain special abilities as well when you reveal these as you kind of put the books on the thing. So in this case, I'll be able to play one of my, these master cards, is that what they're called? So these kind of give you various one-time super special abilities. So for example, this one here would let you move 5 times on the map, which is very powerful. So other cards then, if you were to work, effectively that's how you get your money. So you move along the track here, and each space you go across gets you coins, and potentially if you were to land on this spot here, this is getting me another book token. So you can add this to your board, and this is one of the ways that you're making your actions more powerful later, because all these ones that we're being adding makes it more powerful each time you use one of the book actions, for instance. So just briefly a couple of other things. You have a Joker card which kind of counts for anything, so that's quite handy. You start with that. As I say, a lot of the cards you're buying here give you better versions of your starting cards, so you're kind of upgrading your cards as you go through the game, and generally the higher requirement cards, the one that require more of these mortar boards, are going to be more powerful cards. To come back to the student track, again you can acquire these things that go on your board that make your actions more powerful. There are kind of abilities like this which will give you points every round, but a lot of the time on this track you're trying to get to the end of the various tracks which give you end game scoring. So you can see for every 3 books you've got on your board, you're getting 4 points. This is for every 2 cards you've got that aren't your starting cards, you're getting points. This is for getting people to the end of these tracks on the student track. So you can see you're getting various end game scoring for that. In fact, at the end of the working track, once you've done lots and lots of work and got lots of money, you're getting points for money. You can convert money to points at the end of the game. There's one of these end game scoring things over here on the travelling track if you've done quite a lot of travelling. This one is just giving you points at the end for the number of different books you've got. Again, that's on cards here. So a lot of the time though, it requires you to have the cards played. So for example, as I said, to get the 3 book requirement here, I have to have the books already played. So the order in which you play the cards is quite important. So you do that until you've played 5 cards, and then crucially, you take one of the cards that you've played and you slide it under the bottom. So this is a previous card that I would have used previously. Then at the end of the round, you slide it under, which means you no longer get to use the card for its top ability, but it's giving you the bottom thing, so it's boosting the other cards you're getting. So difficult decisions in terms of which card do I want to put under because I want to boost my abilities, but obviously then I can't use that for its action anymore because it's kind of trapped under the board. So you play over 6 rounds, I think it is, and at the end, the person with the most points wins. What do we think?
This has got a lot of familiarity with lots of other Euro games I like. So like the tokens on the items on the top of the cards feels a bit like Mombasa, and kind of planning what you're going to discard and not get back next turn, but improving future actions. The kind of filling up the bookcase and getting points per round, a bit like Russian Railroads, and the Master cards feel like a lot of the bonuses you get in Russian Railroads. Just playing a card and doing a simple thing, Concordia. So there's loads of different mechanisms. It feels a bit like a Stefan Feld game, although it isn't a Stefan Feld game. It's really good, and although you say it's a heavy Euro game, in theory you're just playing a card and doing a thing, and I don't think it's as heavy as maybe it possibly could be, because the actions are very simple. You might do very well at it, and it does require a lot of forward planning, but in terms of like do this, there's a lot of symbols and bonus actions, but it's just play a card, do that. You might not do very well at it, but actually it's quite easy to get your head around how to play. I think it's fantastic. I think it's Simone Luciani. He's one of my favourite designers. And in terms of where it ranks on his games, it's at least second, if not first, I think, for one of his games. Maybe the Voyages Marco Polo might have more long-term playability for it. I think the variability you'll get with this game means that you'll get a different game every time. There's just so many different cards coming out, tokens and bonuses in different places, endgame scoring. Just whichever board you get dictates what you start with. You get one of the tokens printed on your board, and it will be a different one every time. So I could do the book action, so I could build up my books quite quickly here. I think it's really good, and in terms of like. Will I play this again? Yeah, definitely. Will I play this again loads and loads and loads in the future? I don't know, but so far I think it's fantastic.
Okay. Dean?
I'd like to play it a few more times. I liked it, and it is nowhere near as complicated as it first looks. But I'd like to play it a few times. The thing that was obvious to me was that 2 of us played the same strategy, and we were clearly ahead. And I'd like to see whether there are other strategies that beat that. It seems an obvious thing to do. And I wonder if you have to do that. The other one that strikes me is there are a few pieces on the board that first person to them gets them, but other than that you don't really block each other or get in each other's way. So it's actually quite light on player interaction. I think I had my head down most of the time and weren't even looking at the 3 people I was playing with. So I'm not sure about the level of interaction, but if you're heavily into the game, who cares? I mean, I'd like to see how replayable it is, because it looked like there was sort of like one strategy that I'd be playing every time.
Okay. Hey, Bob?
Yeah, I agree with Dean about lack of player interaction. It feels a little bit like the guy wanted to make sure it was a solo playable game when he actually designed it, just because of that, so you can just do your own thing on there. I think I disagree a bit on the heaviness. I found it quite heavy, mainly because you've got so many different options. The only thing I could say is that you could get a little bit AP prone, because you effectively can plan out all of your turn. So you've got 5 actions, well, which order do you want to do them in? You can just literally put yourself in knots if you overthink it. So yeah, I enjoyed it. The theme's nice, the idea that you get books and you go on your travels, and when you put your books in your sort of bookcase to say where you've been and what you've done is really nice. Yeah.
Rating?
I'll give it a 7.5.
Dean?
I think I'd give it's either a 7 or an 8, depending on how replayable it is and whether there are other strategies in it.
Okay. Steve?
At the moment it's at least a 9.
Okay. I had a great time. It is definitely multiplayer solitaire. As Dean says, some of the things are one-time bonuses that you're racing for. So on the student track, the first person to get to some of the spots claims it and no one else gets it. So I like that. It's a very small amount of interaction, but for most of the time, as I say, you're just planning your own turn. And I sort of decided on a strategy fairly early on, and it meant that I could sort of decide what I was doing, as A-Bomb says, kind of planning out my whole turn. I was like, I'll play this card, and then I can play this card, and then this card. And so it means when people have done that, it could potentially move quite quickly. Although obviously if you've got 1 or 2 people who are a bit stuck, it's like, oh, do I do this or do this, then it can really slow it down. So it could be very quick if everyone's on the ball. I like that. I'm very much in agreement with Steve. It takes the best things, I think, from many different Euros. The Marco Polo travelling thing, it does quite well. You've got to pay to cross, certain sea regions, for instance. I like that. You've got to make sure, plan ahead, make sure you've got the resources you need to do the travelling. And lots of interaction as well. You can have some really great turns sometimes because you take one action which gives you another ability somewhere else, which lets you play the master card, and suddenly you have an explosive turn and get loads of points. So that's very satisfying. As a Euro, I think it's fantastic. I think it does a great job. I would be on an 8.5. All right, thanks very much for watching. That was Newton.